Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
So, that's a lot more cards that they've released from the upcoming Core Set 2020.
Yeah, they wasted no time. Like, it's just, 0 to 100, no chill, boom, let's go.
Yeah, I mean,
oh, man, I feel like we should just dive in. I mean, we talked about Chandra's last week, but that was just, she was kind of, it wasn't even clear it wasn't going to be one of those deals like Modern Masters where they give us Sarah and then we just chill for a bit, right? But instead, boom, we are in high gear, and there are so many cards to talk about. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I feel like...
I figure, the ley lines have to be, like, a starting point, right? Like, that's at least... And we obviously don't know them all yet, but to me, like, one of the things I just saw a lot of people talking about, maybe it's just today or whatever, but one of the things I just saw a bunch of people talking about, Leyline of Sanctity being revealed, along with Leyline of Combustion, just being kind of potentially impactful.
Oh, yeah. Leyline of Combustion is really interesting. I mean, obviously Leyline of Sanctity is a long-time staple in whatever formats they let you play it in, but Leyline of Combustion is an eyebrow raiser. Like, I feel like this might just be a main deck card.
So, like, Leyline of Combustion is some of what Leyline of Sanctity is in certain matchups, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, you don't want to get duressed, Leyline of Sanctity. You really don't want to get duressed, Leyline of Combustion. You know, like a deck that will punish you for taking the cards that are really just going to try to damage you. I can imagine, like, you have like 2 Leyline of Sanctity in play. The second Leyline of Sanctity doesn't do very much. You have 2 Leyline of Combustion in play. Woo!
Well, it does less than the first one. It does the same amount of damage, but it's worth less. The diminishing returns.
Oh, because there's so much disincentivization?
Right. Yeah. Like, at a certain point, it's like, is the 100th point of damage for every time they play a spell on one? No, so the big advantage of Leyline of Combustion comes from when it's not just you, but your creatures, right? Like, or your planeswalkers or your artifacts or whatever. And because it's spell or ability, this interacts with against Wasteland, for instance, right? Like, or if anybody played any kind of a Nicely Manipulator type thing, it would interact with that. If somebody uses a Planeswalker and their Planeswalker targets something, right? Like, if you have a Planeswalker that locks something down, well, they're going to take 2 a turn.
Yeah.
And if somebody, if you have a Leyline of Combustion out against somebody who's, it all adds up, right? Like, the Dovin's ability is like, a lot of the Planeswalkers, some of them it's going to be really hard to plus if you're under, in this kind of a constraint.
Like Sorin 4? Sorin 4 is just garbage against Leyline of Combustion, right?
It's a hard way to do it.
I mean, like, you still get some of the value, but, I mean, you are paying a steep price for 1 point of damage, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this Leyline of Combustion seems really strong.
One of the things that I love about Leyline of Combustion, not just in terms of its potential practicality being brought in out of sideboarding games, or even, I really think it might be a main deckable card, is like the sharpness of the lessons that it will teach. Like, those Esper control players who are like, all right, I'm playing against, red aggro or whatever, and I'm just going to side in like every moment of craving and potentially enter the God Eternals and like take out all my slow card draw. And then like sometimes that works out, and then sometimes they just get, grinded out by like the opponent card. Like, the red deck has its like Frenzy or Chandra or whatever, so they actually end up grinding out the other player who has taken out all their card drawing. Like, Leyline of Combustion utterly invalidates the game plan of just having 1-for-1 life gain removal spells.
Well, makes it a lot harder, right? Like, I mean,
I mean, I'm really thinking about the context where they're like taking out their chemisters' insights, etc. Which I think is pretty common.
Well, it's gonna. How about this? It's gonna cause you to have to restructure how you do that, right? Like you're gonna have to, because you still might want to be bridging to something, but you're gonna need more to go over the top, and it might be that you need to like prioritize, life gain more.
Even more because of like the constant source of damage that's coming out of here.
Yeah, or maybe just enchantment removal.
Oh, that actually might be better, right? That makes a lot of sense to me. That's actually funny, though. That's not the kind of thing that kind of control decks have prioritized against beatdown decks for a long time, although the return of Disenchant does make that a little bit more convenient.
So, Disenchant, a classic, nice to see back. I don't know how much particular need there is for Disenchant in Standard right now, but it strikes me as the type of thing that'll have spots and moments,
I mean, it's widely played in Legacy, right?
Yeah, but Legacy has artifacts and enchantments as a much bigger part of the thing that you got to be able to destroy. It's also not that widely played anymore.
I mean,
it's a fringe card.
When I play in a Legacy tournament, I like walk by a Azorius player and they always got like a Disenchant in their hand. But I mean, I guess you're aiming at stuff that's more impressive, like from a Trinisphere to a Batter Skull, when those kind of permanents are not in Standard.
Yeah, true. The one I'm more excited about is Devout Decree. 1 and a white sorcery, exile target creature or planeswalker that's black or red. Scry 1.
So this card it's like a downgrade insofar that they've slowed it down to sorcery speed.
You're talking about compared to Celestial Purge?
Yep. But Scry, I mean, I think I'm okay with that.
It also it doesn't hit Blood Moon.
Oh.
Like the fact that this doesn't hit enchantments is a meaningful difference. Like you can hit. It doesn't hit vehicles on the the colored artifact space. Who knows, right? But like, really, this is a slow Celestial Purge that does not hit enchantments. But you get Scry 1, and you get a card that's actually legal in Standard.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the fact that Celestial Purge is not legal in Standard is a big consideration. But I think that I would probably be willing to trade for that Scry 1, which is obviously very, very attractive.
See, I like Instant and Celestial Purge a lot more than Scry 1. So I don't think this card's got that much future in, say, Modern. Modern and Legacy, Celestial Purge sees a lot of play. But I just think that destroying Blood Moon is such an important part of the experience there.
I agree.
In Standard, you could talk me into taking Scry 1 in place of it being slow. If the enchantment removal part doesn't really matter too much.
I think exiling might be good, though, right? Like,
but Celestial Purge does that too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about for Standard play, right? Like, surely there's like some black regenerator out there.
Dude, I think this card's fantastic in Standard. Being able to exile Rekindling Phoenix.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yep, there you go.
To say nothing of just all these different planeswalkers, and there's plenty. There's just lots and lots of great targets. I think this is going to be an excellent Standard card.
Used to be you'd want to whack a god or something, but now the gods have that new clause. But whether you destroy them or exile them, they're so resilient. But I think that getting a Rekindling Phoenix is going to be great. And it actually doesn't even have to be some creature that has like a crazy kind of resiliency capability. If you could just aim this at some sort of dragon or Sarkin or Bolas, I guess all Sarkins and Bolases are often both dragons, that it's just expensive and so powerful, like I think you're probably going to feel like you're getting a decent enough deal out of it anyway.
Yeah, but you're also, I think that sometimes you're just going to be happy enough to hit somebody's Goblin Chain Whirler.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, like, I
just mean if you're rounding out, like if you're going to be sideboarding, this is going to be better. If you have this in your sideboard, it's going to be better than a lot of cards in your deck against somebody who's playing Chain Whirlers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're getting like a mana advantage on the exchange. You probably just saved yourself 3 damage.
So this actually brings up the good point of these new, the new color hosers. Like, for instance, this one, obviously, Devout Decree, but there's also Aether Gust, one in a blue, instant. This one's a little confusing, but one in a blue, instant. Choose target, spell, or permanent that's red or green. Its owner puts it on top or bottom of their library. So you're choosing whether to memory lapse them or time ebb their red or green permanent, so submerging their permanent or memory lapsing them. But they also have the option of, if they don't want to draw it again, they can put it on the bottom of their deck. So they're the one choosing top or bottom.
Yeah, so that is a little confusing. I originally read this as being you would choose to where it gets put, in which case this card is really, really strong. I mean, it's still pretty strong to, like, put it on.
I'm not even positive. We should, I mean...
Oh, no, there's been some controversy about this that I've seen online.
So, it is them who chooses, right?
I believe that you choose target spell or permanent that's red or green, and they choose its final location.
Okay, that's what I would assume, but man, it could have been more clear.
Yes. Regardless, though, the flexibility of this card probably can't be exaggerated, right? Like, you're hitting everything from you could even hit like a Banefire, right? Like, because it's not countering it. Or you could hit like a dragon, you could hit a dragon in play, you could hit, I don't know, like a Nissa or a Vivian Reed. It's really, really flexible and fast. You know, it's an instant.
It kind of reminds me of, obviously, but it's kind of like a Flash Freeze meets, it's got Red Elemental Blast DNA, right? The fact that it can counter the spell or hit the permanent.
Yeah. I like how you phrase that a lot. That's, like, really descriptive.
But it's also Flash Freeze. So it's a Flash Freeze with the downside of them having the option to draw the spell again next turn, but the upside of hitting a permanent. Like, that's so good.
So I would also argue, like, there are situations where it's fine even though they have the option. For example, like, what if you just have, like, Ashiok in play? Like, Ashiok, we've talked about a lot, is an outstanding...
Or Jace or Teferi. There's a lot of things that manipulate the top, right? Okay,
yeah.
Instead of Ashiok, though.
Yeah, but Ashiok is... I was just like, you know, it's a Planeswalker you might have in play. If they put it on top, you just get him anyway. Zinger. So you can actually kind of take that out of their hands. Or, like, you could just play Ashiok after you cast the Aether Gust. Like, you know, you Gust on their turn, untap and play Ashiok. That's fine. Or anything that causes somebody to shuffle. For example, you can Aether Gust and then get him with a Field of Ruin. And I think that there's going to be a massive incentive in M20 Standard to play multiple copies of Field of Ruin because of the redundancy. I think it's going to be a big, big deal, actually. You know, stay tuned for that interaction. But, you know, anything like Aether Gust or Scheming Symmetry, I think that you've got a big incentive to make people shuffle.
Sure. Yeah, so Scheming Symmetry, incidentally, while we're on the topic, is the alternative Imperial Seal, I guess. It's black sorcery. Choose 2 target players. Each of them searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. So obviously very sick in a multiplayer game where it's just an Imperial Seal that doesn't cost life that also makes you a friend. And if you're playing 2 HG, wow, are you killing it, right? You and your teammate.
Yep.
But in straight up, it's Imperial Seal that instead of costing you life, gives them an Imperial Seal first. And if you have Ashiok or ways to clear the top of their deck or shuffle with Field of Ruin, whatever, then this card can be quite strong. Particularly, another kind of important one. Like, so anything that lets you, like, mill your opponent while you draw is, you know, like a particularly interesting card to consider in this context. You know, whether it's Thought Scour.
Yeah, that's the absolute first place my brain went.
So definitely Scheming Symmetry. Plus the price is right for Modern.
Oh, it's an awesome casting cost, absolutely. So yeah, I think that the tricky part is just that because it's a sorcery, unless you've got like a Teferi going or something, generally speaking, they're going to get first look, and depending on how badly you screw up the operations, you can't do like a Field of Ruin also makes you shuffle, right? So you just have to watch it, how you're going to want to hit those manipulations. I actually think that there is an argument that you like what's in your deck and you don't care what's in their deck. I mean, do you think that's possible? Like, all right, I don't even care what you get. I'm going to Scheming Symmetry. I think that I'm going to win with whatever ace I'm going to pull, and either your deck is so homogenous or the game has gone a long time and it's not powerful enough that I'm not worried this one turn. That's got to be
possible.
Right?
It's possible. It sure seems like if you're going down that road that not having an option for how to clear the top of your opponent's deck seems kind of wasteful because their ability to find the perfect bullet against you.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that just presupposes that the perfect bullet exists isn't in their deck, right? And so I'm just thinking what if you're playing a control deck, you're playing, and I don't know, you're more or less in top deck mode, and they're playing White Weenie, right? And what's the worst thing they could get in this spot? I don't know, a Loxodon or
I mean, if it's after sideboarding, they could get their sideboard card.
That's true. I just think that there is within the range on this card. I don't care what my opponent gets. I'm just going to get him.
Sure.
But just on that note about Field of Ruin, the reason I think that it's going to be potentially a different world on that with lots of Field of Ruins is because of Cryptic Caves. So Cryptic Caves, I think, is the most exciting card for me that's been revealed so far. How do you feel about this card?
So this is just the colorless land. You can pay 1 tap and sack it to draw a card to activate this ability only if you control 5 or more lands.
Yeah. So it's kind of a Horizon Canopy, right? But I think that if you have this and Crucible of Worlds, then Crucible of Worlds gives you an incentive with Cryptic Caves, and then also gives you an incentive with Field of Ruin. Is that crazy? You just
I don't know. It doesn't seem crazy. It just seems medium. I mean, if I already had the Crucible, I would. It's some amount of value with Cryptic Caves, but that's not the end of the world. I mean, that's something, but it's not. It's not even getting you ahead on the board. You're landlocked, and so the lands that you draw aren't even real cards either.
Well, I was just kind of thinking Field of Ruin and Crucible of Worlds. I think there's a high incentive to. In part because there are so many potential decks that have very few basic lands, right? So,
I don't know.
Current Esper deck has 2 basic lands, just for sake of argument. So it doesn't take you very long to grind them into a highly disadvantageous position, especially while you're basically ramping or replacing every turn with the Field of Ruin. Now, as long as you're already on that road. With Crucible of Worlds, Cryptic Caves just gives you an additional way to maybe not break, but kind of exploit the Crucible. No?
That sounds terrible to me.
Yeah?
Yeah. I do not think... I mean, Cryptic Caves sounds like a fine card, right? Because it's kind of nice to have some land in your deck so you can actually hit your 5 drops if you're playing an aggro deck that wants to hit 5s, but then you can cash this card in. It seems like it could be okay, but I don't know. It doesn't seem super crazy to me.
Oh, well, I was imagining every Arboreal Grazer and Wayward Swordtooth linking their arms and talons together to bring together an all new archetype of giant forests. That's what I was imagining.
I'll
believe it.
Wait and let me reserve judgment on that one. But there's a different new card that could potentially be part of a new archetype. Atemsis All-Seeing, 3 blue, blue, blue for a 4/5 flyer. You can tap Atemsis and pay 2 and a blue to draw 2 cards and then discard a card. And when Atemsis All-Seeing deals damage to an opponent, you may reveal your hand. If cards with at least 6 different converted mana costs are revealed this way, that player loses the game.
I had to reread this card so many times. I was pretty sure I knew what it did, right? But it seems like it's worded a little confusingly to me. It almost seems like you lose, right? But I don't think that's what happens, right? So you get him.
No, it doesn't make you lose the game if you complete the quest. It makes you win the game, but it makes them lose the game so that in multiplayer, one person is out and it's not just...
Oh, I see. So we got this all-seeing Sphinx. Of course, this is really scratching my itch. This is like a tap-out kind of guy. I think I would definitely want to try to build around this card. And I was already just jotting down cards of different casting costs to get, to 6. And it's not hard, right? You're going to have like land, opt, the jumpstart 2, so, some kind of quick card draw there, some kind of counter spell for 3, maybe a Chemist's Insight at 4. And pretty much, and you've already got 6 drops in your deck, right? Maybe a 5 casting cost Planeswalker or so, maybe like a Bolus, and you're already there.
Yeah, I mean, you could also potentially get a surprising amount of converted mana costs with split cards in the right world, right? Like if you have access to, and I mean, we'll see what all they make, coming up or whatever, but like, for instance, in Modern, I mean, just anywhere you can get split cards, like even just, I mean, Modern has a bunch of them right now, but it makes it easy since, like, if you have a card that its modes are 2 and 3, then really it's a 5, but you're not glutting your deck with 5s,
Oh, cool.
Or if you have like Boom Bust is an 8, probably a unique type, Now, I don't know how much it'll end up mattering that way, but, like, coming up with 6 costs is definitely a tricky part of the experience. My guess is this guy isn't going to be good enough for Modern or Standard, but for different reasons. In Modern, a 4/5 flyer that draws a card every turn, the catalogs every turn, is just so far away from being a reasonable backup plan.
It's just too slow, right? I mean, it's too slow both ways.
Well, it depends. I mean, if you just kill somebody with this, you just kill them. It could be a 20 power. Like, you just hit them with Goryo's Vengeance and this, and they're dead. Because you just have Tron in your hand. You have 6 different costs in your hand. But probably that is going to be an unrealistic dream to have come together very often. And in Standard, I think it's just too slow. Like, it's so hard to really get 6 different types of costs. You're not getting that much value from that part of the equation. And the card draw ability just doesn't take over the game as much as... there's just so many Planeswalkers and threats that draw cards on the way in or do something like that on the way in to make them strong against removal.
Yeah, I was just a little concerned about the size of this card. So 4/5 for 6 is... You better have some kind of special ability to make that viable. And I think that they were kind of erring on the let's not have this card randomly be good. Like, if somebody wants to make this card good, that they're really going to have to work at it. Because, like, if they made this like a 6/6 or a 6/5 for 6, like, it'd be... I mean, people would be trying it a lot, I think. But at 4/5, it's behind everybody in the sky right now.
So, as far as guys in the sky go, how much future do you think there is in Kykar Wind's Fury, the 1 blue, red, white, 3/3 legendary bird wizard? So 3/3 flying, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get a 1/1 flyer that's a spirit. And then it has sacrifice a spirit to get red mana. And notably, there are other spirit synergies in the set. This is not the only spirit matters. Actually, it might be. I'm not sure. There's other elementals matter, so it's kind of weird. But
well, I mean, just as
sacrifice
an example,
a spirit to get red mana.
Like, Empyrean Eagle is a spirit, right? And creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. I mean, like there's just a natural combo there, every different way, right? So I am just a little concerned about Kykar's toughness. Like, I think the bar for a 3/3 for 4 is enormously high. Even though I think that this card, like, once you get past the size on this card, like, it seems extraordinarily powerful.
Well, what about that 2/2 that gives you a 2/2 flyer every time you play a non-creature spell? People played that, but I guess it's a monocolor card, and spamming 2/2 flyers is just so much more dominating of a board position than 1/1 flyers.
I mean, like, what about the potential redundancies, right? Like, what if you followed... I mean, it doesn't even really work very well. Like, what if you, like, followed up Kykar with Saheeli, right? Like, so Saheeli would immediately trigger Kykar, and then everything coming after, you'd just be making, like, a ton of 1/1 creatures. But the thing is, like, I think that Kykar's second ability to turn spirits into red mana, I mean, that just seems so abusable to me. Like, I'm not sure where yet. I mean, obviously this is a new card, but, like, you know, you're converting spells, especially cantrips, into power, and then power into damage, or power into additional mana, right? Like, you know, that you can cast, like, one of these, like, big blue card drawing spells, like the blue finale, for example, and then you just have an enormous amount of material, right? Like, that's just like a self-contained system where, you know, they're just full of fuel forever. No?
It does seem... I think you're going to have to take advantage of the red mana ability to really get your money's worth. Like, I think that if you can't take advantage of it, I think a 3/3 flyer making 1/1 flyers on a 3-color card like this is going to be just... I think that the only... You know, if it were a 3/4, obviously that would be different. But as it is, I think you've got to be taking advantage of that bottom ability, because I think that explosiveness is where the real money is at with this card.
Because my concern is, like, I don't know, when do you cast Kykar? Do you wait until you have 4 mana? I'm sorry, 5 mana to cast it, so you can, like, at least go, like, Kykar Opt, right? Like, that seems kind of weak. But if you're, like, tapping out for it, like, this thing just seems to me like, even if they get a couple of spirits, you're just, like, a strike and a chain whirler away from being nowhere. Like, right? Like, it seems horrible. So
that said, I mean, Empyrean Eagle is definitely good with Kykar, although Empyrean Eagle might be good on its own.
Empyrean Eagle seems real exciting to me with Kykar, but maybe you're right. Like, this card seems all right by itself.
Is this part of the Spirits deck in Modern?
Well, it's not very... I mean, it's not very aggressive, right? Like, this card's worse than Spellqueller, right? Maybe, is it? It's like... So, Empyrean Eagle is 1 white-blue for a 2/3 bird spirit. It has flying, and other creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. I mean, it's like... It's okay on its own, right? It's like kind of Vampire Nighthawk sized without Vampire Nighthawk's combat abilities. But
that's a way of describing Herloon Minotaur, huh?
Yeah, but like Nighthawk is like a very good flying creature for 3, right? That I'm just kind of like contextualizing. Yes, Vampire Nighthawk was basically a Herloon Minotaur with wings, but also was so impressive because of its other abilities, right? And, you know, always did really well in multiple standards. I think Empyrean Eagle is closer to Vampire Nighthawk than it is to Herloon Minotaur. I don't know. Like, if there's stuff that gives you like cheap flyers, etc. I mean, this is just it's a glorious anthem. Like,
it's a Goblin King.
How about with like Lingering Souls, right? You like this with Lingering Souls, don't you?
I mean, if I'm playing Modern and I just so happen to already have an Empyrean Eagle in my hand, I'll play it. Yeah. But like, I don't know that.
Try that way.
Okay, so how about a card that I think we'd actually be into, like Corpse Knight? Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life.
Any creature, any type.
Yeah. So this is just a 2/2 for 2. that, man, do you get to start just doming your opponent with life loss really fast for your token generation.
Oh my gosh, Corpse Knight followed up by History Benalia, right? 2 into 3. It's just so much extra damage. If you like draw multiple History of Benalias, it's like I think this might be the card that helps to bring back Black-White Knights, right? So we've got like Black Knights and White Knights that are both good and potentially synergistic with Corpse Knight. We've got Gideon Blackblade. We've got like a good base of black and white, you know, kind of mid-range permanents. You know, maybe a little Sorin action. I don't know. I think the archetype might come back.
I mean, Zombie Knights, good types. There's definitely good types. The thing is, you're making your opponent lose 1 life a turn if you're just playing normal stuff, and that's as long as you can keep playing stuff. So are you really that much better than a 3-2? Unless you do some, like, big time, like, playing lots of tokens in the same turn, or, getting infinite triggers from some kind of recursive loop, or...
I mean, you could just cast March of the Multitudes with Corpse Knight in play, right? That's just a fireball. Right? Like, maybe that's better than Black-White Knights. Also, like that, you know, not for nothing, that card leans on white rather than leaning on green. So, you know, might be a minor case in either direction, whether you're going black or green. But, I mean, that's literally like a fireball followed by like a fireball lifelink attack. And not for nothing, Corpse Knight can help get March of the Multitudes a little bit bigger by itself. If you have 2 copies of Corpse Knight in play, right? Like, which is super plausible, right? You're like Corpse Knight, March. Like a medium-sized March is going to be a tremendous amount of damage, followed by a tremendous amount of damage.
So here's a card that has got Michael J written all over it. Disfigure. B -2/-2. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. I know you love cheap ways, like just, you know, really mana efficient ways to solve specific problems.
I do like those kind of cards a lot. Disfigure has been, you know, a sideboard staple before. I mean, it's seen some main deck play also, right? Right. The problem is right now, this is going to be, you know, for purposes of killing small creatures, this is in conflict with Moment of Craving. So, Moment of Craving obviously costs 100% more mana than Disfigure, but also gets you something special alongside it. I could see an argument for either.
Yeah, I think curve considerations are going to matter a lot. Like sometimes it's nice. Like, you know, there's decks that just they have plays on turn 3 that cause them to just have 1 mana left over. And in spots like that, Disfigure would really shine compared to Moment of Craving.
I agree.
What about Thought Distortion, though? 4 black sorcery. This spell can't be countered. Target opponent reveals their hand. Exile all non-creature, non-land cards from that player's hand and graveyard. This is a wild uncommon.
I mean,
I would not have guessed that this is an uncommon instead of a rare.
This card's really, really powerful. But, I mean, I don't know, like in a real, like, developed, mature game of Standard, like how many cards are they likely to have in their hand on turn 6 or later? That's kind
of a fair bit, right? Like, what if they're playing blue-white or blue-green?
If they're playing blue-white, yeah, Thought Distortion is probably going to mess them up pretty badly. If they're playing, like... Yeah, I don't know. Like, how many cards on average do you think this is going to get? 3?
Tons. They're going to have so many in their graveyard. And you're going to get them all. Because you exile all the non-creature, non-land cards in their graveyard.
Do you know what this card is going to be great? I think if you can get underneath Nexus of Fate. Or underneath Mass Manipulation. Like, I think, like, maybe if you're playing like Dread Horde and you're like afraid of like I'm real big and then they go one bigger than you the next turn, you can prevent that from happening with this. But I think like whenever I see cards like this, my first instinct is just to be like, should I just play like 4 more Thought Erasure / Duress style cards that are less powerful than this but so much faster, and then I'm just going to use my early game mana for those effects, soften them up, and then just play a maybe smaller but still big proactive kind of card that I...
Yeah, but I mean, that's just such a different type of game plan, though. Right, like Thought Distortion is much more... it's not really, using discard spells surgically so as to create an opening for a more modest plan to take over. Thought Distortion is instead, I only have so many slots. I don't have room for all those discard spells. I don't have the kind of threats to take over the game anyway. I can just sit back, Thought Distortion somebody who is drawing a bunch of cards, and then completely have caught up from all their card draw shenanigans.
So the Thought Distortion is kind of the thing in those decks.
Yeah. It's both the disruption and the thing.
I'm skeptical on this one, but I certainly can imagine situations where it would be highly effective.
I bet it'll show up. I got a feeling. My money's on this card as a player.
All right. How about this one? Because I think this one is more interesting than it might...
Necro! Which card?
Dread Presence.
Yeah, Necro.
Yeah.
So 3 and a black, 3/3, Nightmare. Whenever a swamp enters the battlefield under your control, you can choose to either draw a card and you lose 1 life, or Dread Presence deals 2 damage to any target and you gain 2 life. So, got kind of a, Soren's Thirst thing going on, but you can hit any target. So you can hit Planeswalkers, you can hit face. Yep. So that's kind of nice. And then you can also Phyrexian Arena when you're doing it. Now, the catch is, of course, that you're playing with a Hell Giant.
Yeah, that's...
And it's only triggered off of swamps. It's not even, at least it triggers off of non-basic swamps, though.
Yeah, but I think, if you're going to go this direction, you just tune your deck to be accommodating for the Dread Presence. I think that, you just pay the deck building costs, and then you get most of the payback most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, that still works with Watery Grave, for instance, is definitely something.
So, here's my thought on this card. Scapeshift is legal currently in Standard. It's not hard to have Dread Presence and then a medium to big large Scapeshift to deal a tremendous amount of value.
Right? I think you're right. I think that sounds really good.
If you, I don't know, 10 seems like an enormous number, but if you're working at it, right? If you just have 10
well, and
play,
8 is pretty good, right? You might be able to piece together 4 points of damage.
Yeah.
And then when you're on 8, you can just drop Dread Presence and Scapeshift in the same turn.
Yeah, and then that's it, right?
Actually, you don't even need that. You could be at 7. You could drop Dread Presence, play your 8th land, and it's a swamp, and then use Scapeshift. So that's 18. Now you only have to have assembled 2 points of damage from somewhere.
Yeah. So I think
that sounds pretty good. I think that sounds like a real archetype. I think you're right. That's a great idea.
At 7 to 8 mana, you're 2-card combo zone. And the thing is, if they can't kill the Dread Presence, it's still pretty good, right? If you just have it in play and you just play your swamp, you're drawing 2 cards a turn, or you're you can certainly do a bunch of damage to them. You just
or their stuff, their creatures, their planeswalkers.
Taking out a Viashino Pyromancer and gaining 2 life is fantastic.
And you can play Dread Presence as a 5-drop. If you play it as a 5-drop, you get to cantrip or a Necrotal something on the way in,
Yeah, let's see. Are there reasonable fetch land? Nah, not really in Standard, right? The closest we've got is Evolving Wands just to do anything, right?
Well, yeah, it just doesn't work this way.
Yeah.
You'd have to have some kind of Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth type of deal.
So, I think this card is... It's not obviously exciting, but I think if you play it in the right shell, especially with Scapeshift, it might end up being one of the most compelling cards in the set.
It's kind of interesting. I think that Scapeshift idea has got legs. I got a feeling that's going to be a real deck.
Yeah, but again, you need to be able to make GG, right? But you don't need to
Overgrown Tomb, baby.
But you don't need to be able to make GG right now, right? You need to make it on like turn 7 or 8. So it's not that big a deal, I think.
Right.
And then you could also do stuff like with what's the name of that 3 casting us artifact that like changes colors? Like you just do stuff like that.
Sure.
Maybe that's awful. I'm not sure. But it can help get you higher on your mana count, but that you actually need lands. We're talking about a lot of 4s, right? If you go to like circuitous route. But I guess you need to get to like 7 or 8 to do the play that you described. I don't know. I think like there's definitely something here. It just feels so inelegant because this is a 3/3 creature for 4.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. I think you talked me into it. I think I think this guy's going to show up. So what do you make of Goblin Ringleader being back?
Wow. Goblin Ringleader, 3 and an R for a 2/2 haste. Has some additional text. When Goblin Ringleader enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all Goblin cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This card has been a terror of multiple formats alongside buddies like Goblin Recruiter. Right? So it's also just been played in decks that have like 30 plus goblins, and you hit with a decent rate. Nobody's really writing home for a 2/2 haste for 4 with a cantrip clause, though, I think.
So you don't think this card's going to show up?
I think you need to have some sizably strong goblins. Siege Gang Commander is available. There's some decent lords that you can play. I'm not sure what makes me so skeptical. Is there? There's some 1-drop goblins you might want to play, right? There's some Skurg action
Lots.
Standard.
Yeah, there's a full curve. There's more than you could play.
So,
plus, what do you think of the 3-cost 2/2 that your goblins cost 1 less and have haste?
Goblin Warchief.
Yeah, because once you have the Warchief, or once you have the Ringleader, the Warchief starts looking more appealing, right?
Oh, because you chain one into the other, and then you get the discount also. And everybody's hasted anyway.
And then you're basically you're just drawing lots of cards, so you're getting a lot of savings of mana from the Warchief.
Those guys have won Legacy Grand Prix together, right? It's certainly not out of the realm of possibility.
You could use Goblin Instigator as a 2-drop. You could use. I don't know you're going to be desperate enough to want the Crater Maker, but it's possible.
It's funny that the Crater Maker is not good, right? Because the Crater Maker is like a classically good Magic card. It's like Mog Fanatic was never good enough to play in the Goblin linear archetype.
Fanatical Firebrand though does seem good enough here, at least in Standard. And it seems to me like there's a lot of good options for goblins. Valley Veteran seems like a great card to go find. Good with the Warchief, and good with good as a thing to find with the Ringleader.
Are there any big just
Siege Gang?
No, but power wise big, something that when you give it haste, it will hit them for a sizable amount of damage. That's the kind of card I think that's missing, because there's no Pile Driver in Standard. If there were a Pile Driver, I think we would have seen the archetype come together earlier.
Krenko Tin Street Kingpin is kind of an attractive card to give haste to.
That is true. Very, very true.
And Legion Warboss is no slouch.
Especially if you're giving him haste, right?
Right. Rigging Runner is a passable 1-drop if you're just if you just really want to fill out your curve. So, I don't know. I could see it.
What are the things that are holding it back then?
What is it? Is it just there's you just make lots of creatures, and then they just get swept by, some kind of, Kaya's Wrath or something.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing, is if everybody's small, even if you're like, Siege Gang Commander is like a 5-drop, but if everybody's small, you're just like waltzing into every Deafening Clarion and Cry of the Carnarium in the room, right?
Right. Yeah, plus it sounds like you need a lot of goblins to make the engine work. But if your deck is too narrow, you're not going to have answers to so many of the must-kill permanents in Standard. So, actually, speaking of must-kill permanents, and again, your mileage may vary on the rate here, but Reen, Angel of Rebirth, 2 red, green, white for a 5/4 flying angel. Other multicolor creatures you control get +1/+0, and whenever another multicolor creature you control dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step.
I mean, so this Angel of Rebirth is, I think, really all about that last clause, right? Like, I, didn't get that excited for Mugger. It's flying, so 5/4 flyer for 5 and Naya, it's fine, I guess. Other multicolored creatures you control get +1/+0. I guess that's nice. You have a creature that's this cost, this difficult to cast. You hope it's doing something. Oh, wait, that last one is pretty strong, right? Because now you have a situation where opponent point removal against cards like Feather, for example, start becoming very, very inefficient. This is like a really, really good card if you can make sure that they don't actually kill it, right? Like, if they just like point their Vraska's Contempt or whatever at this, then you don't get any benefit from the other stuff.
And that's my concern. I think this is going to end up being more just a fun casual, like a fun commander card. Because I think at the end of the day, there's so many more high impact of 5s. Once you're living in the world of, well, if only they don't kill your threat, then...
Yeah, because, like, if you're controlling it with creature combat, right, like, you can just hurl your guys into danger because you have, like, no fear of retribution. I think that's one of the things that you've got here, but, like, you really need your opponent to not kill this in order to get any benefit.
Well, and also, the fact that it only works with multicolor creatures...
Yeah, but you just build your deck that way then.
But then you're trying, and you need to get more out of it because you're sacrificing. So, like, for instance, let's say, like you're giving up angels, right? Like, there's so many amazing angels that cost 5, so it probably wouldn't work in that spot anyway. But there's some kind of cards in your deck that are not going to trigger this, like Hero of Precinct 1, for instance, or whatever.
Yeah, you'd probably want to play that card in this deck, right?
Right. What about Risen Reef, the new Coiling Oracle?
I think this card is...
of sorts.
It's pretty exciting, but it costs 3.
One green, blue, 1/1. Whenever Risen Reef or another elemental enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you can put it onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't, put that card onto the battlefield. Instead, put it into your hand.
Like, if you've got, like, a lot of elementals in your deck, like, this turns your entire deck into cantrips or rampant growths, which is... I mean, it's really strong, right? Like, if you've got, like, Risen Reef and then follow it with another Risen Reef, you get 2 triggers there. That's pretty hot. I mean, the problems are, one, not are there going to be other elementals to play, because I actually don't think that's going to be a problem. I think the problem is that the other elementals that you're going to want to play are going to be red, right? And this is a green-blue card. And then separately, 1/1 for 3 is a horrendous rate. Like, you're getting a playable rate on the first time around, right? Like, it's on the order of a Wood Elves. If you get, like, 2 triggers, it's already like, solid enough. But you're not really going to break it, I think, with any of the cards that have been revealed so far.
Really? What about Chandra 3? Her 0 ability makes 2 1/1 red elementals.
You know, that's what I was saying, right? Like, it's the problem is not to have enough elementals. The problem is that the elementals are red.
Yeah, but, like, if you're playing Chandra, it doesn't mean it's not like a 3-color, like a team or mana base is going to be that prohibitive. And if you're, like, making Chandra's ability draw 2 extra cards a turn, is so much more rapid, right? Like you could just drop Chandra and then have an expectation that she's still alive on turn 4. And when you do, then you can drop Risen Reef, get the bonus, make 2 elementals, get the bonus 2 more times. So suddenly you just drew 3 extra cards, including potentially putting some number of land into play.
And it just doesn't even matter what happens next. You're so far ahead.
That's the theory. You know, and then you're playing like Sarkin and maybe Tamio or like you just...
In my mind, you've described like a red-green, you know, kind of a Gruul deck that's splashing blue. Just because I think like Chandra is going to be the mana's going to be magnetized in the red direction, and I think there's like a natural. You
really think it's going to be that hard?
I think the thing is like a lot of the time there's cool interactions you can play with, but at some point you're like, yeah, I guess I could do this, but the mana is annoying enough that I won't. Like that, I don't know. I think like that's just like a common theme in Magic deck building.
What do you think of Wild Growth Walker being an elemental?
I did not know Wild Growth Walker was an elemental. Thanks for sharing that.
Or Living Twister, the 2/5 that, you know, Stormbinds people. Lightning Mare, the 3/1 uncounterable with fire breathing that can't be blocked by blue creatures, also an elemental.
I'm a big fan of Lightning Mare.
Muldrotha the Gravetide, if you didn't have enough colors in your deck yet. Runaway Steamkin, I guess.
See, I don't think Runaway Steamkin is going to be friends with Risen Reef.
It depends. If you just go all in on the red elemental thing.
But then that's my whole point. You can go in all in on the elemental thing, but then the Risen Reef it's just, when are you going to cast it? When are you going to have blue and green? It's just prohibitive on the mana.
Maybe.
I mean, if like this card costs like 1 RR, I'd be like, whoa, this is a really interesting card. Where can we break this? You know, this seems pretty powerful. But like, I don't even want to play this on turn 2 with the Llanowar Elf that much, right? And I should really want to.
Maybe. I don't know. It depends on how many elementals are in this set.
I think there's plenty of elementals that have been shown so far, right? Like Chandra's Ember Cat is an elemental cat. It's a 1 and an R for a 2/2. Already, it has no drawback. There are many eras of Magic. This is like the best beatdown creature available, right? But it has an additional ability. Tap, add R. Spend this mana only to cast an elemental spell or a Chandra Planeswalker spell. This card's all right?
Yeah. And, like, you can use that R as the colorless in Risen Reef. Like, that's a thing.
Yeah.
And Chandra 4, I mean, elementals you control, +2/+0, baby.
Yeah, I mean, that ability is looking more exciting than it was at least a week ago. But I mean, I think this cat's all right. Like, it's not the most exciting card ever, but, you know, might be good.
You want to play elemental, you want red-green in your elementals deck anyway, because of Creeping Trailblazer. The 2/2 elemental, other elementals you control have get +1/+0. And you can pay 2 a red and a green. Creeping Trailblazer gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each elemental you control.
Well, that is a quietly super powerful ability, right? Like if you've got like a lot of elementals in play on account of
it counts itself.
Chandra.
I mean, it's not like a 2/2 for 2 is that far off, right? And then the fact that other elementals you control get +1/+0. Great, so it's like a Lord on the front side, but what's this other ability? The fact that it gets, it can scale, and you can use that ability multiple times if the game goes really long. But the fact that you're getting this extra bonus from all the Chandra tokens, I don't know. This seems all right to me.
So, speaking of Chandra interactions, one of the most exciting cards in my mind is Chandra's Regulator.
Regulator!
It's got the right cost.
Whenever you activate, so this is 1 in red, legendary artifact. Whenever you activate a loyalty ability of a Chandra Planeswalker, you may pay 1. If you do, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. And you can pay 1 tap and discard a mountain card or a red card to draw a card. So if you just have Chandra's Regulator in a deck with a bunch of Chandras, the Chandras work well together. The copying ability is pretty good. You don't have to do the copy ability very many times where you've really done some things, right?
I mean, like, what if you just did the +2 on Chandra Awakened Inferno? Right? Like, that's insane.
And then the fact that you can just use Chandra's Regulator to copy Chandra Acolyte of Flame, her gain loyalty ability, so that you can actually cause planeswalkers to gain loyalty.
Like multiple loyalty?
Right, like, and it doesn't work as well with these Chandras straight up, but man, it seems to me that there's... But the other thing is just this tap, pay 1, and discard a mountain or a red card to draw a card. That is a really solid backup plan, particularly if you're at risk of drawing extra Chandras, you know? Because like if you play too many Chandras, you might... Plus you can loot away Spitfire over and over again.
Yeah, like, I mean, imagine you're just playing mono red, right? Like not mono red beatdown as it is right now, but like a mono red deck that would have time and space to use Chandra's Regulator. Look, the obvious thing is you could just discard cards like Risk Factor, right? That are beneficial in the graveyard anyway. But at some point in the game, you can discard anything, right? Like if your land base is mostly just mountains and your spells are all red, right? Like it becomes very, very inclusive in its ability to loot for you. But separately, how about like the -1 on Chandra Novus Pyromancer, right? So pay 1, all of a sudden, instead of making 2 mana, you're making 4. You know, net 3 there. That's not bad, I think.
I can see it.
Or -3 on Chandra Awakened Inferno, right? You pay 1 and you just like deal 6 to everything. Like, it seems fantastic to me.
So it is a legend, but the looting ability reduces some of the risk there too.
Yeah. It's a good fixer. I mean, I think you could play 4 copies and then just, you know, get rid of extra ones. You can get rid of extra ones of this just to itself.
Sounds slow. Maybe, but it does sound slow.
Yeah, I mean, but like, it's going to be a different kind of red archetype than we're used to seeing. At least in my imagination. You're going to want to trade redundant copies of legendary permanents for more land so that you can hit your 5s and 6s.
So what do you think of, actually on the note of fire card, of these burn spells, Flame Sweep being the new 2 and a red, deal 2 damage to each creature except for creatures you control with flying. So it's not just, you know, Earthquake for 2. It's actually like an Earthquake for 2 that hits opposing flyers, not yours.
I mean, it's an instant, which is great.
Definitely, but I mean, you can actually use this with some small creatures if they fly.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you could just build your deck in such a way that you're not getting any downside from it.
I mean, doesn't this card seem excellent? Just 2 and a red instant, deal 2 damage to all creatures would already have my attention, right? Like that card, like versions of that card have effectively been seeing play at times. The whole instant part, right?
Oh, sure.
And then
there's a version
just
of
has
this card that's generally inferior that's played in Standard right now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think this card will certainly get played.
Is it a main deckable card though, or is it just a sideboard? I mean, is it just too hard to main deck this?
I think that you're not going to want to main deck this. Like unless you're playing with cards like Chandra's Regulator to get rid of it.
There we go. Now you see.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not in love with it. I mean, I grit my teeth playing the other one in Standard right now. Especially like sometimes they have pirates, and you're like, oh, come on, pirates.
Does Infuriate do anything for you, by the way? This is the red instant target creature gets +3/+2 until end of turn. You know, 84% of a giant growth.
Not really.
You don't think this will ever show up in any of those sort of, like red green energy or any of the infect style, like just being bursty?
I mean, in modern,
people,
there's
no,
+3/+3
but in standard.
already.
No, but in standard.
Oh, I don't know. Like, I mean, do you think Feather wants this card?
Probably not.
Yeah, Feather doesn't want this card. I don't think anybody wants it.
But maybe they do.
It's not horrible. I mean, just not great either.
Does actually, on the note of elementals, does Cavalier of Flame do anything for you?
Yes, I love
2 red, 6/5 elemental knight. You can pay 1 red. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and haste until end of turn. When Cavalier of Flame enters the battlefield, discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. And when Cavalier of Flame dies, it deals X damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control, where X is the number of lands in your graveyard.
So, to begin with, if you have 7 mana, this card is like basically a 7/5 haste, right? That if they deal with it, they're in further trouble. At 5 mana for a 6/5 with like a really powerful looting ability, I could just totally see myself playing this card. Like, this card is an elemental and a knight, but it doesn't ask that you have other elementals or knights to pay you back. I think this can certainly take some slots that are currently devoted to cards like dragons, etc. And I mean, like, it's just great if you have like, Legion Warboss, for example, or Tibalt tokens, right? Like, this guy's awesome with Tibalt tokens.
Oh yeah, and what's more, you can use the top ability multiple times, right? Like, it's not like you can only pump this one time. You could spend 3 next turn you could just pump it 3 times and +3/+0 your whole team.
Yeah, and it's so dangerous, right? Like, because if let's say you just play it and it doesn't get like the big boost or anything the first turn, que sera, but then like the next turn you're pumping it, now it's attacking for 9. If they kill it, they're going to take extra damage from the graveyard still. Besides which, like, it fixed your hand. How awesome is it to get your hand fixed?
It can be very awesome. This is a cool design.
I really like this card. Obviously,
and lands are what you want to discard anyway,
Yeah. It's a little prohibitive at RRR, but not like... Not out of the realm of possibility.
Dude, you're not going to just use Kykar to fix your mana?
No.
Dude, elemental synergies.
He's an elemental. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
No.
But, Kykar only sacks spirits.
No,
it's
definitely not
makes
now.
The elementals. Sorry.
You could go like Chandra Novice Pyromancer on 4, right? And then he's an elemental that would be buffed by that. That would be sweet. But yeah, I don't think this card has any particular allegiance other than to the triple red.
Yeah, I think this card's just straight up dope. You got to play with a lot of red cards, though.
Speaking of straight up dope, Ajani, Strength of the Pride. Is that like the gem of the week?
So Ajani is another 2 white, 5 loyalty planeswalker, +1. You gain life equal to the number of creatures you control plus the number of planeswalkers you control. All right. That's pretty good.
It's at least 1, right? Like, if Ajani's the only thing you got, you still get 1.
That's pretty good. -2, create a 2/2 white cat soldier token named Ajani's Pride Mate that has, whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Ajani's Pride Mate. And then 0, if you have at least 15 life more than your starting life total, exile Ajani, Strength of the Pride, and each artifact and creature your opponents control.
I think, like, it's not even going to be that hard to get to 35. Right, if you're going to play this in a shell that's full of Pride Mates.
And then you're, like, Plague Winding your opponent and Shatterstorming them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this card is about, like, the interplay between the +1 and -2 abilities, though. Like, obviously, Ajani's Pride Mate is, in some matchups in Standard, like, a terror of an opposing creature, right? And this makes multiple of it potentially.
Dude, is it finally time for Lich's Mastery? You can play Ajani's Pride Mate and Ajani's Strength of the Pride, making Ajani's Pride Mate.
Yeah, I mean, you can also just like +1, and then you also get paid off by the Lich's Mastery, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's oh man, we're gonna have so many Revitalizes and Bond of Flourishings. We're Abzan, right?
I don't know, maybe. I would love to live in the world where we're at Orzhov.
Well, we can just play like Bellhaunts and stuff also. Those guys.
Definitely. Yeah, Bellhaunt is... I was thinking that guy would be an early addition to the deck list.
Oh, man, but our curve sounds horrible. It's like... Oh,
why?
4's plus.
No, Ajani Pride Mate. Revitalize.
All right.
Moment of Craving. Yeah, Moment of Craving.
This could go a lot of different directions. Not all of them good.
No, most of them not. You know. Well, awesome. I think, without question, M20 spoiler season starting sooner than expected. But I, for one, welcome our new core set 2020 spoilers.
Yeah, I'm most excited to Scapeshift the face with Dread Presence in play.
You're not Cryptic Cavesing?
I was like also excited about that, but I think like talking about it out loud, I'm like, oh, one of these things gets me an incremental advantage very deep into a game where I was already winning because the rest of my stuff was already in play. The other one just kills the opponent.
Dude, I think I'm in for Cavalier of Flame.
I like that card too.
And I'm still just, all in on Chandra, Awakened Inferno.
Yeah. I think that Corpse Knight into March of the Multitudes is going to deserve a little bit of something. Like Corpse Knight, March of the Multitudes, and Dread Presence, Scapeshift. Those are like maybe we have a weird beatdown combo standard, which would be way different than what we've been playing. Like right now, it's just like how many different combinations of decks can have 3 different kinds of planeswalkers in play. Next one just be like, here's a guy, here's his combo friend. Also, I'm gaining a bunch of life. Let's go.
Awesome, dude. See you next week.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play Dredge just for jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state. Lost so out of